Hi, and welcome to my channel, Laura's Library Card. It is time to start my Love in the Night Readathon vlog, and I'm just gonna dive right in. I have finished. I wanted to prioritize our group book, and I finished that first. So I have just finished The Captive Merman's Promise by Zoey Castile. This was our group choice, and at the end of the week we will be having a live show chat where we talk about this book as well as everything else we read throughout the readathon. And I wanted to start here so that I could for sure have that done. Hadn't realized that it was as short as it was. I guess I knew it was technically only like 100 and a little bit pages, but it read very quickly. I will say I thought it was okay. It's because it's so short. There's not a ton of time for like emotional development, romantic development. Because of that, it felt a lot more like an underdeveloped story. It's sort of more just an erotic short story with these hints of what might be possibly. I don't know. I still to this day don't really know how to evaluate novellas or short stories because I just feel like there's not enough in them for me to really evaluate. I mean, this had decent structure as a story and was well constructed for what we got. I just feel like we didn't really get much of a chance to get to know either of our main characters, and they just had this insta lust, insta connection, insta love situation. So it was basically impossible for me to believe any sort of like true romance between them when you're saying I love you less than 24 hours after you've met, or like less than 48 hours after you met, for sure. So I don't know, it was hot and it was short, but it was nothing really super fantastic. I did think it was very interesting that it was a merman, because I don't think I've read any merman, mermaid, paranormal romance before. So I'm glad that it, wet my whistle and let me dive into that new subject. But yeah, I'm not sure that I would recommend this book as a great romance. So looking forward to our discussion. I do hope to read some reviews on Goodreads. Maybe that will help me better able to express myself. But yeah, I'm glad I got to read something new and different, and we shall see. I have quite a number of options here for what my next reads will be, as well as multiple options throughout the whole readathon, especially since now I have Kindle Unlimited. I also realized that a number of the choices that I talked about in my TBR video are novellas or short stories. So we shall see how that goes, because those are not exactly my favorite length. So we shall see, and I will tune back in after I have another update. Hello, it is time for me to give you an update as I am at the midway point of Always Practice Safe Hex by Juliette Cross. This is the fourth book in her Stay a Spell series, and our main characters and love interests for this book are Livy, the witch. She is the next Savoy sister in the series, and her love interest is Gareth Blackwater. He is a Grimm. The premise of this book is that they are in a contest or a competition, but also they're on like the same team. The details are a little unclear for me, but basically the two of the Gareth and Livy are both working together, as well as a third person, on this sort of like on like a PR campaign that they came up with. Again, details of the contest escaping me. I don't really understand the premise, but like they're in competition, but also they're working together. Anyway, they are working towards a cause that is near and dear to Gareth's heart, which is to raise money and awareness for orphans and the children in need of foster care who are supernaturals, because there's not currently a system in place for amongst the supernatural community for children who are supernaturals, and so they are frequently, thrust into the human foster care system, and that's not ideal for them. And so they are working on putting together fundraisers and a website and stuff to bring awareness to this cause. Okay, cool. So Also, it's a paranormal romance, so the other main element is that there's a ton of sexual tension between Livy and Gareth. So I'm here at the midway point, and so far I am liking it. I have enjoyed all the books in the Stay a Spell series. I really like Juliette Cross's writing, and I think that one of the things that she really excels at is the sexual tension. I think she does a really great job building up layers between the characters and just creating that tension and that pull between them. It's very palpable. It's very sexy. It just hits me right in all the spots and does a good job, right? So there has already at this. So I just stopped at the 50% mark, or the 52% mark. I love you a lot because I stopped at the start. Yeah, so I definitely know that when I return back to this book, I'm going to be diving straight into the heat of it because it is finally starting to be a very intimate moment between the two of them. There is this underlying element of a sort of sexual harassment situation where one of the judges of this competition, who's also the liaison for the team to work with the company or something, like basically like this guy is Livy's boss, as well as Garrett's boss, and he has the hots for Livy, and he has been, he's done a whole bunch of like leaning in too close and like smiling inappropriately and like making, these comments that make her feel uncomfortable. And every time when she's like, he like backs off. And, but that does continue to like progress. So trigger warnings, content warnings for workplace sexual harassment. And I'm not exactly sure yet how far that goes, but it's definitely present. So be aware of that. So yeah, I will say that for me, I have noticed a couple more errors or editing issues, I guess. Things like should that really be a question mark or should that be a period? Or this is sort of missing a comma, or this seems to be missing a word or has an extra word. I feel like there's more of those errors in this copy or this book of the series than I remember in previous other books. I mean, I am reading this on Kindle Unlimited, so I don't think that it's traditionally published. So, I want to leave, you always have to like leave some room there because it's not being traditionally published. It hasn't gone through quite so many edits. But I did notice that. And I'll say that overall, I think that the writing is just like one tiny mini little baby step under previous books, but I'm only halfway, so we shall see how it all turns out. But so far, I am thoroughly enjoying this, and it is steaming right up. We've already had the eat her out prompt is already done, so that's good to know. It's good to know. And I love how this book is slowly unveiling more and more of the Grimm capabilities, because that's an area that we just didn't know that much about in previous books. So I am excited to continue to learn more, and I feel like both characters right here at the 50% mark are starting to give in to their physical desires, but also they're both acknowledging to themselves that they want something to be there. Like they're basically both being like, hey, I'm like really like have some chemistry with this other person, but also like I like this other person and I kind of sort of want to date them / maybe more. So it is going great, and I will tune in when I'm done. Hi. Okay, so I have finished Always Practice Safe Hex by Juliette Cross. It was a treat to come back to the Stay a Spell series. This is the 4th book. I have said it before and I'll say it again. I really enjoy this series. I really enjoy Juliette Cross's writing. This is a great series. Totally 100% recommend. I don't feel like this book was quite as strong as the previous books. Okay, I'm kind of conflicted because I feel on the one hand that Gareth is wonderful and he was a very fun love interest hero for this book. And I loved learning more about the Grimms and their magic and Gareth and how he was so powerful. So I liked all of those aspects. The actual, the other one part that I didn't like quite as well is I didn't feel like Livy really like stood out to me as a heroine that was different from some of the other sisters. Maybe that's controversial, I don't know, but like it didn't feel like she like really stood out to me. I don't know. And otherwise, the construction of the book, I was kind of confused at the start because it's like a contest. I think I said this in my first update. It's like a contest, but they're also competing, and yet they're on the same team, but like they're competing against each other, even though they have joint goals. And so I was like just sort of like confused about that whole aspect about what they were actually trying to accomplish and if it was really a competition or not. I was really annoyed when there are unwanted advances made toward Lavinia, toward Livy, and she's like, no, I don't want to like interrupt the contest by like slinging accusations or something. And I'm just like, what? I don't know. It just, that rubbed me the wrong way. But I just felt like it was very clear to me what the third act drama was going to be, and then it was no surprise that is ultimately, where it went. I did like the sort of Judge Judy element after that. I'll just leave it like that. I want to be kind of vague, but I don't know. For me, there were multiple, like, more typos in this book than I had remembered in previous other books. I just felt like this book, it just wasn't as tight. It just wasn't as tightly constructed. It just wasn't as tightly edited as some of her previous books. And I just wanted a little bit more. And also to have the conflict be something that is like as triggering. I mean, it was not really a trigger for me, but like it's a very sensitive topic to have sexual assault be on the plate, be as part of the book. So I don't know. I did really like Henry's involvement and getting to see a little bit more of him, especially since it seems like he's going to be a love interest for one of the future books. So yeah, ultimately still really enjoyed this installment. Definitely plan for this series to be a sporadic reread going forward in the future. I like this installment mostly for all of the learning about the Grimms that we get, and Gareth is wonderful. I feel like Juliette Cross really does tension very well. Her sexual tension, her romantic tension, just tension, and that like that sizzle between characters. I think she does really well, even in like side characters that we know are coming in future books. They get these little like one-liners or little background commentary about how the longing glances or whatever. So I feel like she does that element really, really well. And I feel that pretty much every male love interest in all 4 of the books so far have been great. Like when I have been reading them, I'm like, you are it. You are giving. It was great. So yeah. This book also has some mild BDSM elements, I guess is what you would call it, and that's not like a kink that I'm particularly interested in. So I don't know. This one for me was a 4-star, whereas I feel like all of the rest of the books in this series for me have been 4.5 and 5 stars. But I will just leave it at that. Yes, through the magic of editing, I am putting chunks of the books together, not necessarily when I filmed these in chronological order together. So anyway, I wanted to let you know that I am close to, but not quite at the midway point for Once Burned by Jeaniene Frost. This is the first book in the Night Prince series. This is the like 8th or 9th book in one of her other series that I have not read. This is actually, I believe, my first Jeaniene Frost book ever. So I've been listening to this on audio during the workday, which is going okay. I feel like the audiobook is decent. There's one narrator because there is one so far point of view, one perspective, and we are following our main character, Layla, who also sometimes goes by Frankie. So Layla is human, but has this ability that developed after like a freak accident. When she was like 13, she touched a downed power line, and now she has the ability to conduct electrical currents through her bodies, like zap people, taser them. And also she has these psychic abilities where if she touches a person, she can see some of like the strongest memories of their life or like their deepest sins or something. And sometimes she can get a glimpse into their future. And then also if she touches objects, she can potentially trace people who have interacted with those objects and or learn about some of the, emotionally charged moments those objects were used. So she has a lot of abilities, and at the start of this book, she is basically kidnapped by some vampires, and they want her to use her abilities to try to track down this other guy who's like a big bad vampire. And this is Vlad, and he is the male love interest, and he is actually Dracula, essentially, but he does not, or he was the person who inspired Dracula or whatever, but he does not want to be called Dracula, and is touchy about that subject or something. But this guy is a vampire, and he's like a gazillion years old, and he's a gazillionaire, and he is super fast, and he can fly, and he has like mind reading abilities, and he also can conjure fire and can and is like immune to fire. So I'm like, this guy, like, and of course he's hot and he's tall and he's ripped. So I'm like, is there anything this guy can't do? Are we gonna learn that like his one and only fault is that like he can't whistle or something? I don't know. Anywho, point is that this vampire is the one that the bad guy kidnappers want Layla to find. And so she does manage to trace him based on some of the objects that they have found, or that they have gathered for her. And so this is how the two of them become connected sort of mentally. And then, the story goes on from there. So it's good. It's not bad, but it's also like not great. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what the problem is. I feel like, I hadn't been that far into it when I was like, when was this book published? I'm guesstimating, 2008, 2010, somewhere right in there. And it was published in 2012. So it just really like reads that way for me. I can't even quite put my finger on what exactly it is about it, but like that does not surprise me at all, right? That it's 10 years old at this point. And Layla is this sort of interesting mix of like sweet and naive and innocent and like virginal, but then she also is like seen some stuff in all these memories and in her lifetime, and there are some like graphic depictions of intense violence moments that are not like extensively described on page, but 2 or 3 sentences about like, something that like I do not want to think about or picture. And so she has this sort of direct, straightforward, like hardened aspect to herself. So she's, a bunch of contradictions, and that's just so intriguing to Vlad. And I feel like this book so far already has a lot of tropes that I see a lot or have, experienced a lot in paranormal romance. And for some reason that is making this feel more tired, I guess, even though I don't feel like that's the book's fault necessarily, because I think that like most, you know what I mean? Like, it's not the book's fault that it's using tropes that probably weren't even that like heavily used when it was being written in 2011 compared to now. But it's like, I don't know. It just makes me annoyed when this super rich, super old, super experienced, super powerful guy would be like, oh yeah, this 25-year-old human virgin, like she's the one for me. Maybe there will be some sort of fated mates element here. I want to know why these two will eventually fall for each other, and I just don't feel like a lot of emotional development is happening here, other than the two of them are sort of acknowledging the other one's strengths. And I don't know. So I have those elements, and it's giving me strong like Sookie Stackhouse vibes. It's giving me strong Charlie Davidson vibes. There's a little bit of sort of a Christine Feehan element to the writing style. So it's just not quite doing it for me. And yes, there is some sexual tension here and a little bit of like angst or a buildup, but there's also just like the way it's written. There's times when like they're together and they're like making this intense eye contact and they're having this conversation, and then it's like the end of a chapter, like literally like he says something that's like dun 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 dun, and then you're like, oh okay, and then the next chapter is like, so the next day blah blah blah, and I'm like, so wait a minute, like what happens at the end of that conversation? Because it felt like it was like a cut to commercial element, and then they just were like, oh, later, and I was like, oh, okay. So I don't know. There's just something about it that's like, it's good, but it's not great. So I am hopeful that it kind of turns around a little bit, and he is not holding her captive, but he has brought her to his house with the intent to protect her and keep her safe while she does some work for him, because now that he knows her abilities, he wants her to try to figure out who kidnapped her, must be one of his enemies. And so she has to, kind of figure stuff out. But Yeah, so I'm hoping that more will be revealed and that I will like it a little bit better as we go along. But because so far it's just like good, but not great. Hi. Okay, so I have finished Once Burned by Jeaniene Frost, and it was pretty meh for me. I honestly was kind of just like losing interest halfway through and was mostly listening, but I was also like playing Animal Crossing and doing dishes. And so if I missed something, I was not being very good about trying to go back and make sure that I really followed things. So I don't know if it was a combination of me just like not really caring that much, losing interest, the skimming, the what. I felt at one point I tried to really pay a little bit more attention so I could speed the audiobook up a little bit. And I wasn't even totally sure. It felt like there was a lot of characters. I wasn't totally sure who was being mentioned and who they were working for. And I don't know, the whole thing just like didn't really interest me that much. It was much more of a paranormal like action book as opposed to paranormal romance. There were one or two sort of intimate scenes between our love interests, and yet this is definitely the first book in the series. And I knew that going in, but what I mean by that is it was all the setup. It was getting our characters introduced. It was getting our characters to start to work together, to establishing the start of a relationship. And by the end of the book, she is starting to think, maybe I'm starting to have feelings for this guy. And Vlad still remains to be this just blank wall kind of situation. Some of his actions and some of the turns of phrases and stuff that he uses sort of implies that he gives her more regard than he has ever shown for other people based on how he's phrasing things, but it's not a sweeping romance. And this is just not something that I'm super interested in. I didn't feel like the book held my interest. I don't know if I would give this author another shot. I wouldn't say that this book was so bad that I would never give this author another shot, but I didn't feel like this book was so good that I want to continue this series. So I don't know. I feel like it was just sort of something I could have liked 10 years ago when it first came out, and not something I'm super enjoying right now. So that was kind of a bummer, but that's okay. We are continuing to make progress. Hi. Okay, so I am here to finish out the vlog and to tell you about the last book that I finished during the Love in the Night readathon. This is Demons Do It Better by Louisa Masters. And the premise is that our main character is Sam. He is a human. It is his point of view through the whole book. And he is the only human to work at a sort of government institution for supernatural creatures. And so all of the other people who work at this office are demons, or vampires, incubus, succubus, shifters, etc. And he is let in on this secret. His whole worldview changes when he applies for this admin job and gets it. So there's also the love interest is Gideon, who is a demon, and the two of them have a one-night stand hookup but right before Sam starts at his new job, and Gideon is wearing a glamour, so Sam doesn't know that he's a demon. And then when they see each other at work on the first day, they're both like, so yeah. So I do feel like that premise is like a smidgen misleading, because there is then a 5-year time jump, and we get Sam having been established for a while in this world, and he's made friends, and he is fully adapted at this point to this whole idea of supernatural creatures existing, and we don't get to see anything that happened in those 5 years. And then Sam is asked to leave the job that he was hired for, that we don't get to see him in basically at all, to go and work for Gideon's team, which is like the elite team at this job. And Gideon and his team are investigators, and as the blurb says, there's like a whole bunch of missing pregnant couples, and it's sort of mysterious and what's going on and blah blah blah. So in my personal opinion, premise was really strong, world building was strong. I really enjoyed Sam as a character and his voice. I felt like his character and personality really comes across very strongly on the page. I listened to this on audiobook, and the narrator is also the narrator for It Takes Two to Tumble by Cat Sebastian, which was one of my favorite books in, I think, 2020. So maybe a little bit of bias there because I loved the narrator, but I do feel like Sam as a character was very strong personality. But I don't really feel like this was a romance because it felt a lot more like it was a paranormal adventure or a part paranormal, like not even like a suspense, but they, you know, they are trying to figure out this like mystery element, but like the romance in this book is pretty non-existent. Like there is a hookup at the start, which was interesting and fun and hot and okay, cool. And then there's a whole lot of nothing. And then like Gideon and Sam just kind of have these like intense looks, but Sam is convinced that Gideon doesn't like him and is pretending that Sam doesn't even exist, blah, 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 blah. And they never really have any conversations about being in a relationship. Suddenly, at like the 60% mark, like when Sam's going through some stuff, Gideon's just like steps up and is like being a boyfriend. Like he's giving him kisses on the cheek. He's like, I'm here to support you. And I'm like, who are you? Like it just felt like it came out of left field. And I just felt like at the end, we never got to see any like development between the two of them. We never got to see any like, are we in a relationship? We get to see 2 sexy times scenes. And the book is really focusing a lot more about this investigation and who Sam is, because it turns out he's sort of somewhat related to, or like events from his past have to do with the missing couples. And so was the premise really cool? Yes. Was the setting really cool? The world building? Yes. Were the characters decent? At least Sam was? Yes. Do I feel like the characterization of Gideon and all of the other relationships, it just wasn't there. It needed to be a lot stronger. I didn't really buy this as a romance, and feel like there were a number of times where we were so in Sam's head, but we don't get to see him interacting with people that he claims are his best friend. Like Alistair seemed cool, but like, why were they best friends? I wanted some background there. That was done better than the Lily character, which he says, she's like my best female friend. Lily has like 4 lines the entire book. So I just wanted more from this book. I wanted more relationship presence between Sam and everybody, and especially as a romance functionality, I just did not see that there and wanted more from the romance. So was a good book. Would continue potentially in this series just to see where things go from here. I also felt like, just a side note, I feel like the whole investigation thing was like kind of confusing. Like I did not really follow what was going on. And I think that that's partly because Sam is not sure what's going on, and he, a couple of different times, talks to the members on his team and says, so in summary, question, and like helps sum things up, but I was like not really hardly following and didn't really care. And multiple times throughout this book, the answer is because magic. And I'm like, okay, I guess that's okay. I don't know. I had some frustrations, especially in the second half of this book, but I did think it was really cool. Things we get to learn about Sam and his past and who he is and where he comes from was cool and was an interesting reveal. Not a huge surprise, but like kind of a surprise. I don't know. Not where I thought the book was going from the blurb. So just kind of go into things with a grain of salt. And if anything I've said sounds good, I'd like the writing. I just wanted more. Fell a little flat in the romance category for me. So overall, I am very happy that I participated in this round of the Love in the Night Readathon. I loved reading paranormal romance. Didn't feel like any of the books were like super amazing, best book ever, 5-star amazingness, but I liked most of what I read, and I always love just dipping my toes into the paranormal romance world and reading about Merman. I've never read about Merman before, and just having different options always brings up cool, new, interesting ideas. The live show was technically last night as of the time I'm filming this, so it was good discussion about the group book and to hear what else other people read. So if you participated in the Love in the Night Readathon this round, thank you so much. Definitely comment down below what books you read and something any of the ones you loved. Maybe tell me your favorite of our popular tropes or prompts is one of your favorites to read about. So thank you so much for watching my vlog, and I will see you next time. Bye.